This 17-year-old loser gained a power so OP, bro can literally tear weapons straight out of the human heart. Then joined the resistance to overthrow a ruthless military occupation and became his country's savior. So somewhere in 2039, this young pink-haired baddie is getting chased by a lot of machines, and she got whooped by one of them, but she activates her envy and disappears like, "Your dad." When she makes it to the exit, she hands off whatever she snitched to her pet robot, and at that moment, one of the mechs pops up and she almost got sent to Jesus. But thankfully, her backup entered the chat and gave her a chance to really escape. But ain't no way these mechs will let her dip with that milk, so Mofo launches rockets and yeets her under the bridge. Meanwhile, say hello to this socially awkward 17-year-old, Shu Ouma, who's been talking to this side character and gets told that there were reports of a terrorist attack the night before. That's why there are so many soldiers around. Once bro gets to school, he starts lore dumping and explains that 10 years ago, a virus triggered a full-blown pandemic and clapped Japan in the cheeks so hard they had to call an international backup. Ever since, Japan's been kinda dependent on those partners to keep the lights on. After class, Shu makes his way to his secret base, which is an abandoned house in a forbidden area. And bro was surprised by what he found. The pink-haired girl. And since, she just barely survived her life, she didn't trust Shu at first. But they managed to chill together. Shu even shared his food, and bro started striking up a convo with her, especially once he realized she was actually a singer from a really famous band. At this point, the girl reveals that her name is Inori Yuzuriha and asks Shu to take her robot to a specific place in the city. And then, this baldy and his goons show up and brutally beat a teenager. Shu tries to step in, but he just quickly wussed out. So, Major Guin and his evil G.I. Joes take Inori away. And while Shu is trying to recreate the Yamcha pose, the robot funnel shows Shu a map of the place Inori told him about. So, as his redemption arc, he takes the robot to that place. As they reach the location, they find a bunch of hoodlums trying to rob them. 'Cause they thought the robot was a rice cooker. And I ain't joking, that's true, by the way. Then someone shows up, and bro was like, "I have the high ground," started aura farming, and quickly beat the crap out of the retards. So this pretty boy introduces himself as Guy. Yeah, that's his name. He is the Guy. Bro is him. He's the leader of this so-called terrorist group, Funeral Parlor. And then this cat girl came out of nowhere and snatched that robot. Then Guy asked Shu, "Where's Inori?" And Shu was like, well, she was getting interrogated. Then they were attacked by this motherfucker and his goons. And they are such assholes they went full PvP. Started shooting everyone, even civilians. Then one of the mechs attacked them, splitting Guy and Shu apart. So Guy told Shu to protect that very important thing. Search for Inori and rescue her. As the military clashes with Funeral Parlor, Shu finally reaches Inori. And as bro is about to get smacked by some endlave, it accidentally smashes the vial. And it bonds with Shu. Then bro starts pulling out a huge-ass sword coming out of Inori's chest. What the heck are those titties? A 3D printer? Well, anyway, the mechs tried to attack them and bro started parrying that shit like Expedition 33, easily soloing and saving them both. And while the gang tries to escape, another blonde boy tries to kill one of their mech pilots. But thanks to the cat girl and her gyat, she manages to save the pilot. Now this blonde boy is Daryl Yan, and he's a nepo baby. His father is a high-ranking military commander, so this kid is spoiled to the core and a psycho. He tells Mr. Baldy that he'll be joining their squad, for now. Then Shu finds himself with Guy and Inori on top of a building, where Guy says he's clearly disappointed with Inori for literally screwing up the mission. But Shu starts white knighting Inori and says she did her best, while Guy explains that her huge mistake was giving Shu the power of the key. revealed to be the Void Genome. It's a very OP biological weapon that was actually supposed to be used on Guy. And honestly, all of this could have been prevented if Guy hadn't been aura farming when he first met Shu and had just grabbed the genome for himself. Now, Guy explains that the genome is one of only three, and the power Shu unlocked is called the Power of Kings. It lets a person's inner strength turn into a weapon, like Inori's sword. After that, Shu is forced to join them to fight the military. Then one of their members informs Guy that the military, led by the Nepo boy, has taken over a building that is holding 100 hostages. So Guy calls the entire rebellion and starts a meeting, and cooks up a plan to free the hostages. Meanwhile, Shu and Inori start venting and arrive at the area where the hostages are being held. And what they find is really horrifying. They see the military treating innocent civilians brutally, beating them and calling them infected with a virus, even though they're not. And because of this excuse, the soldiers can kill people with zero consequences. Right when Nepo Boy and the troops execute the captives, the rebels finally strike. They launch a barrage of missiles and trick Daryl into chasing a truck, while ambushing Baldi with their weapons aimed at him. But Baldi also sets a trap card, a bunch of bombs planted under the city, and threatens the rebels that he'll set them off unless he speaks directly with the leader. So Guy steps forward, but when Baldi demands he surrender and hand over the stolen key, Guy flatly refuses. In response, Baldi orders hundreds of laser weapons to be aimed at him. But little did they know this was all Guy's plan all along. At that moment, Shu jumps into action, quickly takes Snapple Boy's own void, and uses it to generate a massive energy shield to protect Guy. The shield reflects the laser blasts back and wipes out the mechs and weapons, completely crushing the enemy and freeing the hostages. After the battle, Guy commends Shu and invites him to join them. The next day in class, Shu couldn't believe what he saw. The teacher introduced a new transfer student, none other than Inori herself. Bro was so shocked he stood up, and the entire class stared at him. But instead of being weirded out by his reaction, they realized that this girl is a well-known idol. So the entire class instantly spam her with questions. That's why Yahiro steps in, trying to play Mr. Nice Guy and calm things down so everyone would stop simping for Inori. Shu, however, is still trying to figure out what the heck she's doing at his school. And when he gets home, he's shocked when Inori casually walks into his apartment. As Bro tries to make sense of what the heck is happening, he trips over a funnel, and while crawling his way to the living room, he sees Inori stripping. Oh boy, he's dead. When he asks again why she's in his house, she just replies, "To protect him." Just then, the doorbell rings. It's Mr. Nice Boy Yahiro, who says Shu looks down lately and asks if he wants to hang out and watch a movie. A horror movie. Bro, seriously? I don't think that's gonna cheer anyone up. But Inori suddenly shows up and quickly tells Shu she's got something really important to say. This, of course, really surprises Yahiro, but he doesn't make a big deal out of what he just witnessed. But I don't know, guys. This guy is acting way too nice, and it's weirding me out. So they go meet Guy, and he is looking good. Bro has a nice drip. Then he explains to Shu why Inori was sent to live with him. Turns out, one of the hostages from the last battle is actually a student at Shu's school. If that student recognizes him, there's a risk they'll snitch to the military. Because of that, Guy gives Shu and Inori the mission to find out who the witness is and to use Shu's power to do it. The very next school day, Shu and Inori come up with a plan to test students one by one. But when Shu tries it on one girl, Bro accidentally grabbed what he wasn't supposed to grab, and it got posted online. Later, he and Inori figure out why it didn't work. He needs direct eye contact to activate the ability. For Shu, who'd never touched grass, that's not easy. But with Inori's encouragement, he decides to try again. The following day, Shu tests another student, and this time, it works, manifesting a futuristic motorbike. But it's still not on the right person. After a bunch more tries, Shu's exhausted, and at one point, Bro almost gets killed by a refrigerator. Inori then explains that each void reflects a person's inner fears or insecurities, and the one they're looking for is a pair of scissors. So Shu's like, if that's the case, then why is your void a sword? Before she can answer, the girl he touched earlier shows up and starts chasing him. But look who it is! Yahiro himself! He helps them escape and hides them in the gym. That's when Yahiro says something that makes Shu realize this is the guy they've been looking for. When confronted, Yahiro loses control and attacks Shu. But our MC manages to defend himself by manifesting the scissors as his own weapon. Inori was ready to finish Yahiro off, but Shu stops her, insisting this isn't the right way. After that, he and Yahiro agree to keep everything a secret. The next day, Shu and Inori ride the train together. Inori admits she wants to keep living with him so she can learn more about him. Then the train suddenly stops. Armed soldiers are waiting at the station, and as the doors open, Yahiro betrays Shu and yeets him straight into the hands of the military. Bro gets arrested on the spot. So Inori tried to rescue her dumbass boyfriend, but another member of the rebellion holds her back, saying Guy specifically told her not to interfere. Shu ends up taken away and gets interrogated by Major Makoto Waltz Segai. Wow, that's a long-ass name, but
big.
Shu ain't saying shit. So Segai has this idea and decides to show him something. Once they reach the building, Segai explains the real reason why Yahiro snitched him out. Because Mr. Goody Two-Shoes has his lil bro infected with the apocalypse virus, and his treatment is really expensive. AKA, he's broke. So he started selling drugs. Plus, since there's a huge reward for turning in rebels, he sold Shu out. Easy money. From there, Segai tries to gaslight Shu into thinking the rebellion is the real enemy. But that doesn't work because our boy knows these guys are seriously messed up. Eventually, Segai reveals that the rebels are planning an attack to free one of their members. And sadly, it's not Shu, but someone named Kenji, who's been accused of being a mass murderer. Well, that's also messed up. And since the gaslighting ain't working on our boy, Segai decides to give Shu a transmitter and threatens him. If he doesn't cooperate, they'll capture his pink-haired girlfriend. Okay,
Wait, what?
now that's really messed up. Meanwhile, Inori's really devastated that she couldn't protect Shu and wonders what she can do to save him. Back at the base, Shu is told he'll meet with a lawyer, but when he enters the room, it's actually Guy, with Tsugumi, the cat girl who can hack international government databases with her gyat. So, with her thick-ass powers, she cuts the surveillance cameras. Guy tells Shu the plan. The rebellion will strike during a blackout, and Shu must find Kenji and use his void to escape. Shu hesitates, but the operation kicks off with explosions and a power outage. Inori also reaches out to Shu, saying she's coming for him, against Guy's orders. Shu makes a break for it, but is cornered by a lot of mechs. He's saved at the last second by Ayase, the crippled girl who moans every time her mech gets hit, and a serious Guy fangirl. That's why the moment she sees Shu, she blames him for dragging Inori into this and warns that if anything happens to Guy, she'll kill him herself. But Shu doesn't give a damn, and when he sees Kenji dropped off, Bro immediately activates his power and pulls out Kenji's void, a weapon that can manipulate gravity. With it, Shu solos an army of mechs, and when he's surrounded, Inori appears. Shu pushes the void's power to the limit, creating anti-gravity fields that let him parkour on water just to reach her. Damn, Jesus would be proud. He then draws her sword and slices through the machines, and even the entire building. After the battle, Shu, Inori, and Kenji regroup with Guy. And Bro once again invites Shu to join the rebellion. And while Shu still doesn't fully trust him, he agrees, still keeping that weird transmitter on him. And the moment Bro reaches the rebellion's hideout, Guy announces publicly that Shu will officially join their group and serve as a key figure in their plans, all thanks to his Void Genome. He also explains their next mission, scheduled in 3 days, and Ayase is assigned to train Shu until then. And Shu said something so dumb. He said that he feels awful, causing trouble for a girl in a wheelchair. Bro, I am disappointed. Well, he ended up getting knocked out by the girl in a wheelchair anyway. So, during training, Shu notices that Ayase somehow has the pen Segai gave him. When he asks for it back, she tells him she'll only return it if he manages to complete the training. I don't know, guys, but I have a bad feeling about this. Now, he goes through a lot of training with many members of Funeral Parlor. And turns out he sucks at everything. But he realizes that everyone actually has a deep respect and trust for Guy. After a rough day, Shu hears Inori singing and decides to check on her. He asks why she joined the rebellion, and she just says she literally owes everything to Guy. Then Shu finds out something really heartbreaking. Inori admits that the reason she says she belongs to Shu was because Guy told her to say it. Huh? So you're telling me that the time she disobeyed Guy's orders and tried to rescue Shu was all fake? Well, I didn't know about that, but that's nothing compared to what he sees next. Inori walks straight into Guy's room, where he's waiting topless. Oh no, well, actually, it's not what you think. But still, Shu takes emotional damage, runs down the hallway, and accidentally crashes into Ayase, who starts teasing him. But at least he has a wholesome moment with Ayase. She even encourages him to push through with the test the next day to prove himself worthy of being part of the rebellion. Now, during the test, Ayase explains that Shu's goal is to reach a target defended by her. At first, everyone thinks Bro will fail, but the moment he sees Argo, he takes the opportunity to use his powers, manifesting a void shaped like a wand that creates a force field. It temporarily stops Ayase long enough for him to reach the goal. And yay! Bro is now a member of the rebellion! Ayase even gives him the pen back, and that's when Bro finally starts feeling guilty. But the celebration is short-lived. News breaks that the military used a massive satellite weapon. At just 3% power, it already wiped out part of a city, right where Guy was. But Guy manages to contact the gang and tell them that he survived, though the rest of their reinforcements and supplies were wiped out. Despite his injuries, he declares a new offensive against the military. Soon after, the rebels set up camp near the battlefield and begin planning an assault on the base controlling the leukocyte satellite. Their main goal is to seize the weapon's power core, which is protected by a security field. Touching it would trigger a lockdown, making it impossible to use, meaning Shu's power and Kenji's gravity ability are the only way through. Guy warns everyone that this mission is incredibly dangerous and that not all of them may make it back alive. Hearing this, Shu offers to go alone because Bro doesn't want anyone to die if it makes a mistake. But of course, the others refuse. So, Shu walks off, considering whether he should use the pen Segai gave him to alert the military. Just then, Inori finds him and he listens to what she has to say. Back at the camp, Guy is suffering under the weight of what happened. Bro starts questioning his actions, whether they're truly justified, and reveals that Kyo, one of his closest allies, was mortally wounded during Leukocyte's strike. The only way to end her suffering was to end her life. Shu unexpectedly overhears this conversation and confronts Guy, accusing him of being selfish and letting others, especially Inori, sacrifice themselves for him. Guy laughs at the accusation, and the two start throwing hands. During the fight, Guy explains that Shu misunderstood. He's only here to serve as hope for others. Hearing this, Shu reconsiders and makes peace with him. The mission begins with a diversion led by Ayase and the rest of the team, drawing most of the military away. This gives Shu, Inori, Kenji, and Guy a chance to slip into the base and reach the satellite's control core. Just as they're about to use Kenji's Void, Nepo Boy intercepts them. Guy solos the spoiled Psycho, but the gunfire damages the core, sending the leukocyte satellite plummeting towards Tokyo. With time running out, Guy asks Shu for the pen Segai gave him, revealing he always knew its true purpose. At that moment, Segai himself appears. Guy makes a deal. In exchange for saving Tokyo, Segai must erase Shu's criminal record. He then explains to Shu that the pen actually marks a target for another leukocyte satellite.
Wait, what?
When activated, the second satellite fires on the pen's location, wiping out whatever stands there. Guy volunteers to be the one to make the sacrifice. Shu, devastated, feels powerless to stop him. At that critical moment, Inori appears and offers her void to Shu. Drawing it out, Shu manifests a massive cannon. Using its power, he unleashes a beam strong enough to obliterate the falling satellite, saving Tokyo from destruction. After that, Shu finally trusts Guy. And so, Segai kept his promise and wiped our sad virgin boy's criminal record, letting Bro return to school. But most of his schoolmates still judged him for being arrested by the military. Then the guy who was bad-mouthing him gets slapped by this baddie, Arisa Kuhoin, who also happens to be the student council president. In class, she convinces everyone he was only interrogated, not guilty. Suddenly, the tension eases and the class starts spamming him with weird questions. Shu thanks Arisa for standing up for him. By the way, Arisa will have a bigger role later on that will actually help the entire rebellion. But before we get into that, Haru mentions that Yahiro still hasn't come back since Shu's arrest. Shu looks concerned and Inori asks,
"Why are you gay?"
Like, why does he even care about the guy who literally betrayed him? All Shu can say is, I don't know.
It was so gay.
Just then, Shu's mom Haruka comes home and finds Inori there. Shu fumbles for an excuse, but Haruka plays it cool. She sends Shu out to buy some cake and calmly talks with Inori over dinner. Meanwhile, Guy meets Shibungi, who tells him that their resources are drying up after the satellite strike. So Guy says they need a new sugar daddy to back them up. That's why their goal is to persuade Arisa's grandpa, since Arisa is actually from a super rich family. And they're hosting a yacht party. At the same time, the military cooks up a plan to attack it. So Guy and Shu sneak onto the yacht, but then Shu spots his mom at the party. And Bro tries to hide, but he accidentally bumps straight into Arisa. And of course, she instantly recognizes him and she's like, what's this virgin doing here? Come back here! But Guy saves his little homie and starts rizzing Arisa, calling her an armadillo. Nani? And now Neko Girl shows up and warns our virgin boy that the military has finally launched missiles at the ship. So Shu runs to warn Guy, who's still busy talking to Arisa's grandpa. They hatch a plan to use Arisa's void. Guy lures her outside and starts rizzing her again, only to let Shu use her chest to pull her void out, creating energy shields that block the missiles and turn them into some pretty-ass fireworks. Arisa's grandpa, impressed, agrees to become the rebellion's sugar daddy. Easy money. But what the rebellion didn't know was that Guy actually set everything up. He leaked the party info himself so the military would strike, just to secure the alliance. Later, back at Shu's home, Haruka is seen looking at an old photo of herself with Shu as a kid, and someone who looks suspiciously like Inori. So Shu gets ready for a school trip, And when he tells his mom, Haruka's like, "What, you gonna leave me all lonely here?" Then flashes her cake at the camera. She also tells Bro to use the chance to visit his dad. By the way, the whole school trip thing? It's a lie. It's actually Guy's plan. He sends Shu, Inori, and a bunch of classmates undercover to infiltrate a secret military base. To keep things low-key, they crash in a mansion hooked up by their sugar daddy. At the beach, Shu's stuck setting up umbrellas and gets stunlocked by Inori in her swimsuit. But Hare, who we all know has a crush on Shu, didn't want to lose to Inori, so she pulls out the one thing Inori lacks. Her badonkers! Later, Shu visits a cemetery and reveals his dad's grave. That's when Guy shows up, drops some heavy lore, and tells Shu he knew his dad back when he was a professor and one of the first researchers fighting the apocalypse virus. Shu admits he never asked much about his dad because he didn't want to upset Haruka. Guy then takes him to a cliff where the military base is hidden and explains the mission: steal a mysterious stone tied to the virus. And their only way in is Sota's Void. And since this guy is a die-hard Inori fan, Guy suggests using her as a bait to make him cooperate. Something that ticks Shu off. But he has no choice. Back at the mansion, Sota asks Shu if there's really nothing going on between him and Inori. Shu says no, and Sota smugly replies that if that's the case, he'll try asking her out himself. Shu, desperate for the mission to work, actually tells Inori to go along with it. So she ends up walking with Sota and shows her a fan video he made for her. And of course, our sad virgin boy is hiding nearby, boiling with jealousy. When Sota tries to confess, Shu clumsily jumps in, awkwardly blurting his own feelings for Inori, which he doesn't even finish, by the way, then uses his powers to pull out Sota's Void. But Shu didn't know the entire gang was there watching the whole thing, and they started roasting him. Now they all head into the secret base. With Sota's Void, they easily open the hidden passages and reach their target. But it's too late. The stone is already gone. And somehow, Guy knows who stole it. Turns out it was some mysterious dude cosplaying a holy priest who used Shu's dead dad card to sneak in and swipe the weird stone. By the way, this guy is none other than Shuichiro Kato, a high-ranking military commander. Later, Sota wakes up after the mission, and the two sad virgin boys argue about not being honest with each other, then instantly become bros again. The group wraps up the mission on the island and sails home by boat. Back at school, Kanon and Hare are gossiping about their crushes and Yahiro's sudden disappearance. Well, he and his little bro were actually getting hunted by the military. Then Shu shows up and accidentally drops a teapot. Hare, who's been crushing on him, gets all flustered. Kanon, being the wing girl of the year, sets her up, asking Shu to go shopping with Hare. On the train, Hare works up the courage to confess her feelings. She even stumbles into Shu's chest when the train suddenly stops. Just as she's about to say something, a hooded guy comes running for his life, and Shu immediately recognizes him. It's Yahiro, of course. Shu sends Hare ahead because Bro has to confront Yahiro. Yahiro takes Shu to his hideout where Jun is resting and explains how they escaped during the military base attack. Meanwhile, Segai is secretly tracking them, and Hare secretly follows too. Since Yahiro is broke, he actually asks this same friend he betrayed for some cash, because he knows he and Jun can't keep running like this. But instead, Shu calls Ayase for backup, saying he wants to help Jun. Right then, Segai's men ambush them. With no escape, Shu tries to pull out Yahiro's Void, but they argue. Yahiro is shocked because Shu is clearly different now, carrying some real aura, and even promises he'll still save Jun. Finally, Yahiro gives in and lets Shu draw the Void. But Jun sees this, tries to say something, but Shu has no idea what the heck he's saying. Then Nepo Boy shows up again and attacks Shu with energy tracking hooks. But for some reason, Jun reacts, and one of the hooks latches onto him instead, slamming him against the ceiling. Sega realizes Jun's infection reacts just like void energy. The virus spreads into Yan's mech, frying it, and somehow Jun is there, controlling the mech. Then Jun tries to squeeze his big bro, and Shu jumps in to protect Yahiro, only to suddenly get pulled into Jun's memories. He sees Jun's childhood, his bond with Yahiro, and hears Jun begging Shu to end his suffering. With no other choice, Shu grants his wish. He comes back to reality, and the mech collapses. When Yahiro wakes up and asks where Jun is, Shu answers simply, Jun is gone, and he's the one who ended it. And you can see in his eyes that bro already has PTSD. And that messed up Shu so bad, he failed some of their missions. Couldn't even attend school cause everyone he saw just reminded him of Jun. And some old crazy memories kept resurfacing. Guy even pointed a gun at his head and tried to kill him, and Ayase straight up called him a wussy and kicked him out of the rebellion. When Shu gets home, Inori is waiting. He tries to apologize, but she hands him a song she wrote to cheer him up. But the moment she gets closer, his trauma hits again. He sees something terrifying, calls Inori a monster, and that makes the girl cry and say goodbye. Meanwhile, the military gears up to move the weird stone. Nepo Boy is assigned to handle it and catches his dad in 4K making out with his secretary in the elevator. And of course, that pisses him off. Back at the funeral parlor base, Guy is patched up and talks with Inori, who asks if she really is a monster like Shu said. Guy tells her not to listen, then bluntly asks if she's fallen for Shu. And honestly, she doesn't even know herself. Elsewhere, Kado gets confronted by Haruka for stealing the stone and using her dead husband's ID. Kado then tells her that Shu actually has the power of kings, his connection to Inori, and of course, that he's part of Funeral Parlor. Back with the rebellion, they raid a transport train, completely unaware that Segai already set a trap. The plane's a decoy, and the real stone is already hooked up to a tower. Then a purple energy bursts out, sending virus waves all over the city. Meanwhile, our sad virgin boy tries to rebound with Hare, but it doesn't work cause he sucks at rizzing ladies. She also reveals that she saw everything.
Wait, what?
Happened with Yahiro and Jun, and knows he's hiding some crazy powers. Shu tries to apologize, but that's when he realizes everyone is already dying. Right then, Nepo Boy went full schizo and killed his dad and his side chick. With the general gone, Kado swoops in and takes command. Then Segai points a gun at Shu's mom's head, but Dan Eagleman punches him down, giving Haruka the chance to escape. Tsugumi calls Shu and tells him the mission's failed. Guy and Inori are still stuck at the airport, all because bruh is such a wuss. So Shu decides to call in his classmates, the student council president, even Yahiro, and use their voids to rescue the rebellion. One by one, they agree to back him up. Meanwhile, Guy and Inori, after meeting Haruka, head for a tower. They plan to counter the virus by broadcasting Inori's song to suppress it, while the other rebels hold back the army. As Inori starts singing, the infection begins to fade from people. At the same time, Shu and a bunch of teenagers somehow solo an entire army. After mowing down a few mechs, they finally get close to Inori, only for Nepo Boy to ambush them. Yahiro hands over his void, and Shu uses it to fight back, finally breaking through to Inori. But just as things are about to get good, a portal rips open behind her. Another blonde boy named Yu, with the same power as Shu, comes out, steals Inori's void, and tries to kill Shu. But Guy takes the hit instead. So, blonde boy number 3 ends up triggering the apocalypse virus. Then Yu drags Inori away, and Guy tells Shu to go after him. since Shu plans to sacrifice
have a great
Inori
time.
to bring back someone named Mana. Shu dives into the portal right before it closes. While traveling through it, Yu traps him in a vision, forcing Shu to remember memories he'd long forgotten. Shu recalls his childhood with his sister Mana. One summer, they rescued a boy drifting in the water. Young Guy. The three of them grew close, but those memories were later sealed away in Shu's mind. When Shu snaps back to reality, he finds himself in a massive hall lined with stairs. Kato steps forward and explains that Inori is just a clone, a vessel made to hold Mana's memories. He says Mana was the first human infected after touching the Apocalypse Virus Stone. According to him, the virus was part of a higher plan from beyond Earth, meant to wipe out humanity and create a new species. Mana, consumed by the virus, fell in love with Shu and wanted him to be her partner. Yes, it's sweet home Alabama all over again. And on top of that, Mana's also a schizo. When Shu rejected her, she unleashed the virus. Now Yu wants to use Inori to bring Mana back and reset the world. That's when Ayase and Guy arrive. Yep, bro survived. They rush to stop Yu, but Ayase is quickly taken down. Guy then pushes Shu to remember the truth about the day the virus began, unlocking his suppressed trauma. With that, Shu fully awakens the power of kings, now able to draw voids without knocking people out. He pulls a void from Guy, and together they push forward against Yu and the spreading crystallization. Guy uses his void to release Inori's sword, giving Shu the chance to free her. Guy presses on towards the vessel holding Mana's soul. Gravely wounded, he orders Shu to stab him with the sword and destroy Mana once and for all. Shu, of course, hesitates, but finally ends both Mana and Guy in one strike. The hall collapses around them. Shu escapes with Inori, but he's left broken, and together they mourn Guy's sacrifice. So, will Funeral Parlor survive without their leader? If you want us to cover part 2, let us know in the comments. See you in the next one. Bye bye!